I thought we'd start today's video just with these engines here. As you can see, they're all old units. Just had this pallet come in with 4.6 engines on that we've bought for core materials, so they've all been stripped down. Cranks have all been sorted out and stored on the shelf, ready for regrinding when we need them. The blocks are all here for pressure testing, so they'll all have the liners removed and be pressure tested. And obviously 4 pairs of cylinder heads as well, all wrapped up, ready for reconditioning as and when required. So yeah, we buy engines in all the time. This was a pallet of 4. I think I've got a pallet of 3 coming in the next couple of weeks. So yeah, lots of core material at RPI Engineering for turnkey engines and exchange engines. Also over here, this is the 4.6 stage 3 engine that's going over to the States, at Florida I believe, destined for a Morgan Plus 8. So that's been wrapped up and strapped to a pallet there. Box of parts, ignition upgrades, etc. in there also. He's already got the ECU chip, I think. So, as we're on the subject of engines, let's go to the engine building bay, and I think we're going to have a day of teleportation. And here we are, no walking around today. 4.6 short engine here then. This is going over to California, destined for a Discovery 1 according to the build specification. So, I'm struggling for light there. It's got the GEMS timing wheel on, because over in the States the Discovery 1 got the NASPEC GEMS engine. Obviously over in the UK they all ran hot wire fuel injection with distributors. That's now finished. Holly's been very busy because as you can see we've got 4 engines all lined up here, all completed, plus the one that obviously we wrapped up yesterday onto the pallet going over to California. This is a 3.9 stage 1. Let me have a look at the engine number. 3.9 with stage 1 cylinder heads and a Piper 270 camshaft. So that's almost complete. That's got the Cloy's duplex on the front there. It looks things Holly's just got push rods and rocker assemblies to go onto that, and we're waiting for the customer as well to send us his ancillaries, well, his exchange engine, because this will get the covers and everything from his engine all inspected and cleaned and bolted onto here. I think we'll do a feature on that actually, because it's quite nice to see the transformation from the core engine that gets sent in to us, how we clean everything up and then get it bolted onto this engine. So we'll do a feature on that, I think. This is a 3.9 short engine again that Holly's finished, ready to be sent out. 3.9 with a Torque Max camshaft. It's going into a serpentine engine, so it needs a standard timing chain set to fit behind that serpentine cover. That is destined for, let me look at the build specification here, 3.9 short, where are we? 3.9 short is going into a classic Range Rover. So the customer will obviously be building that up. We're supplying all the parts so that we know it's got the correct quality gaskets, got fresh head bolts. Obviously we won't be supplying the bottom row of 4 head bolts, and we will be advising, well I already have advised the customer to only torque up the 2 rows of 5 head bolts, so the head's pulled nice and square down onto the short block we built up, because this bottom row of 4 bolts would obviously apply extra force to the bottom of the cylinder head, which would cause, and does cause, because we see it all the time on engines we strip down, the head gaskets to all slightly weep here into the valley chamber. You can take cylinder heads off of 3.5s, 3.9s, anything with a 14 bolt head pattern, and you will see area here on all of the head gaskets where the combustion gases have weeped into the valley. Originally, sort of going in depth on this a little bit now, but I've started talking about it so we might as well. Originally, when the engine was designed, the rocker bolts actually went through as head bolts as well. And that was what then evened up this force. But when Rover got the design, they did away with the rocker bolts being head bolts and just had them as rocker bolts only. And but in their wisdom at the time, they left this bottom row of 4. As we all know, in the mid-90s, when they brought out the later cross-bolted block, as seen here on this 4.6, they actually did away with the bottom row of 4 bolts because they learnt their mistake by then, and just left it as the 2 rows of 5. So, the last engine in here, engine number 4, is a 3.9, again with stage 1 cylinder heads. This is actually getting a Torque Max camshaft rather than a 270. Quite often we run the 270 on the stage 1 cylinder heads, but this is going into a Land Rover 90 that's coming to us on Tuesday. Again, for us to actually remove the engine, take the ancillaries off and fit to this engine, and then install and set up. Again, we'll do a feature on that as well, so you can see the project from beginning to end. So that's engines covered this week. Let's see what the workshop's been up to. Part 3 of this video then. Morgan Plus 8. I'm putting some pictures up of what we've just done on this on Facebook, hopefully just prior to this video going up. It's come in for extremely high emissions. It's been getting a little bit rough on running. We fitted this engine I think a couple of years ago, and we've seen it once or twice just for tune-ups. Haven't seen it for a little while, and the customer's booked it in for this issue and have a few upgrades done. We've actually upgraded injectors at this point. You'll see the Facebook posting I've done on that. Nice Bosch oversized injectors in there now. Obviously the ECU's been mapped accordingly as well with the Tornado ECU chips. This is a 4.6 Merlin engine, so it's what we call a stage 4 engine. It's also got the triple throttle body carbon fibre intake on. This is probably our big package engine, you know, it's our flagship if you like. See the Merlin cylinder heads we own the rights and the machining to these days. And this car, it's got a huge amount of torque. It will easily pull fifth gear at 15 miles an hour and go on to do, I think we had a Morgan in Germany on the Autobahn once at 158, which yeah, Chris was backing off at that point. And we don't really know where the top end is, but I'm sure we could calculate it using mathematics and all that kind of magic stuff. So yeah, Merlin cylinder heads obviously gives us best valve position for the introduction of air and fuel to the chamber, and then obviously extracting it as well via the exhaust. So we get the maximum valve size because we're over the centre of the chamber. We've also got the best possible port flow from the intake manifold and to the exhaust manifold. Not drag racing cylinder heads, they're not absolute ultimate horsepower cylinder heads, and they're not designed to be. They're designed for the best possible torque and horsepower combination with good road manners. You know, this car doesn't jump and jerk around. We're still running the 285 in this engine. We have done this engine with a slightly higher lift camshaft as well, but still had a nice smooth steady idle. That was in Cobra. So yeah, I think I've just got a couple of lambda sensors on order for this. Fuel pressure seems good, and most things are checking out but not quite right, so we're just adjusting it all back in scope. It's probably a combination of many things that are causing the emissions to be high, not just one thing in itself. But as you can see, it's a gorgeous looking engine in a lovely Morgan Plus 8. Has the full RPI exhaust system on as well. I don't know if I can get underneath here and show you the 100 cell sports cats there. It's got our track day silencers on, but the customer's actually going to have fitted the slightly noisier version that he also owns with the sports silencers and the rear tailpipes with no silencers. So I think his words to me were he wants to set off car alarms for a little while. So we will enable that as well. SD1 Upstate section of this little video. The as you all know, car had the MOT last week and passed. The headlining was the wrong colour. We've actually had new material over, and that's now been fitted up to the fiberglass moulding. So obviously we've just got to cut this section out for the sunroof, and also there's some stitching involved that holds the material to the sunroof. There's the little plastic clips front and rear which the material stitches to, so we've now got that to do with some extra material, and we've got to reline the A, B, C, the D pillars. The D pillars on the car need relining with this material as well, so it's all colour matched to the headlining. This is a much better colour match than before, although for some reason the camera is struggling to focus on it. There you go, one SD1 headlining board covered in as good a match material as we can get our hands on. Last section of this week's update video then, the 50th anniversary Range Rover that you've seen extensive work on, with the chassis, the axles, the gearbox, repair to the floor, and just recently obviously the engine installation. It's happy days because the engine is now all up and running. So, next step with this vehicle is MOT time, and then some local miles before it can be exported to Australia. See you next week.